From the field to the film room to the war room, we've got you covered every step of the way as the road to the draft starts right now on BGN Radio. Hello and welcome to another episode of the BGN Draft Show. I'm your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Shane Haff NFL. I'm joined today by my co-host and fellow draft enthusiast Deibs. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Be sure to check out his podcast, Party on Broad. Deibs, how are you doing today?
Good, man. It's Combine Week. We have a lot of work to do here, getting ready for Thursday. But talking edge rushers on this one, some really fun guys to talk about tonight. Quick note, though, like after we get past this group, it's kind of dicey. So if the Eagles are looking at bringing on an edge rusher to the roster, you're going to be looking at round 1 or round 2 here.
Yeah, we some position groups we do a top 5, some we do a top 10. We wanted to do more than 5 edge rushers, but we weren't getting to 10. So we're going to do our top 7 tonight because there's 7 guys that are pretty good edge rushers, and then it really drops off. So, but we'll get into that. I'm also joined by my co-host on Chalk Talk, Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. Be sure to check out his Tough Cover radio show every Saturday. Mark, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I agree with Deibs. Definitely, if you're going to invest in edge, invest early, especially this year. Definitely not the deepest class. I will say I'm talking myself into 8 to 10 a little bit more, over the last couple of weeks. But after that, it really falls off a total cliff. But yeah, excited for the Combine Week. Next year we'll be doing it live from Indy, right? Well, let's say it right here. Next year, live Absolutely. BGN Draft Pod in Indy. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
I'm in. That'd be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and jump in. Like I said, we're going to rank our top 7 edge rushers. We are recording this pre-combine, so obviously we'll get combine results and things. We're going to do just a peek behind the curtain. Right after we finish this episode, we're also going to record our linebackers, which you will hear a week from now. And so we will be recording those before the combine. But the following week, we'll come back and debrief combine winners and losers. It'll be kind of a week late or a week after the combine, but that's just kind of how the scheduling worked out this time. So we will cover the combine. It'll just be 2 weeks from when you're listening to this one. So let's go ahead and jump in. And let's go to the number 1 guy on all of our boards. I believe it's Laiatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, played for the University of Washington as a freshman in 2019. And then in 2020, in fall practices, he sustained a major neck injury and was told he would never play football again because he had lingering numbness in his neck that didn't go away. After not playing in 2020 and not playing in 2021, he transferred to UCLA and he worked his way back onto a football field, eventually receiving clearance to play football in 2022 and promptly notched 10.5 sacks for UCLA. He followed that up in 2023 with a 13-sack season with 21.5 tackles for loss. He was first team All Pac-12 both years. He led the country in pass rush win rate in true pass set situations last year at 40.7%, and he was PFF's highest graded edge rusher. I just realized I wrote PFF's highest graded edge rusher per PFF, obviously. So as for Laiatu's strengths, he's got good size for the position at 6'4", 261 pounds, but he's also got really impressive twitch movement skills. He's a fluid mover, and he can contort his body through gaps. He can bend around the edge on offensive tackles. He's got a number of pass rush counter moves. He can convert speed to power. He's the total package as a pass rusher. And then in the run game, he's got really good block recognition. Like, I think he processes runs quickly. He reacts to try to make a play, and sometimes too much, and that's a little bit of a negative. He can lose gap discipline at times, but he's the most complete pass rusher in this year's class. He's got a high motor. He brings it every play. But he does lose that gap discipline at times. He's prone to leaving his gap to try to make a play and leaving cutback lanes. But the real thing with Latu, and the reason he might not be a top 10 pick, is he has major medical red flags with the neck injury. Now, he's played 2 full seasons without injury issues, but this is going to be a big box that teams are going to want to check at the combine with all their medical checks. the combine is of the utmost importance for Latu. And even if he doesn't do a single drill, it's still the most important pre-draft thing for him is being cleared by teams at these medical checks. Fun fact about Latu, he played rugby in high school, and he said in an interview that if money was the same, he would play rugby instead of football. So he's a rugby guy. He prefers rugby to football, but I think he's pretty versatile. His best usage is probably an odd front stand-up pass rusher. Think like a Hassan Reddick out at the edge, but he could play in an even front as a defensive end too. I think he should be a top 10 pick as long as the medical's clear. I love Latu. Mark, what are your thoughts on Latu?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it all there, but he is a complete package when it comes to everything on the field. On the field, there's no doubt about the fact that this is a top 8 prospect in the draft for me. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and put him there. Like we've kind of all had the conversation off air. Shane initially was like, I love Latu. I don't know if I can make him edge 1 because of the medicals. And we kind of all talked about it. And I kind of just decided he's played 2 full years he's played 2 full years at UCLA after what happened at Washington without an injury, without an issue. Until I hear something, I'm just going to treat him like, how I see him on the field. And how I see him on the field is every bit of a potential, top 5 pick, if not a top 10 pick. He's that good. It's 27 sacks in the last 2 years. His hurries, his pressure stuff is just at a different level than everybody else we're going to talk about in this class. Great pass rush win rate, great run stop rate, like just everything you could want in an edge rusher.
All right. Dibes, anything you want to mention about Latu before we move on to the next guy?
No, you nailed it about the combine. Like that's going to be like a top 5 story heading into Thursday. What are his medicals looking like for sure? I don't think he's as quick as some of the other guys we're going to be talking about today. I think that's another thing to watch at the combine. I believe defensive linemen go first on Thursday, so I'll be watching that. But this guy's maybe not like an all-pro ceiling, but I think he's got a really high floor. I think he's a plug-and-play guy from day one. He's a little bit older. So if you're looking for like immediate production out of an edge rusher, man, Latu is your boy.
All right. Well, let's move on then to our number 2s. Dibes and I share the same number 2. He's number 3 for Mark. Dibes, tell us about Jared Verse.
Jared Verse, baby. 2023 stats, 62 pressures, 11 sacks, 24 run stops. He's an above average athlete. He's got a ridiculously off the charts motor, man. I think you could say Dallas Turner has a higher athletic ceiling. I think you could say Latu has more consistent tape over the last 2 years. But Jared Verse, man, has a lot of upside to get excited about. He's got a deep bag of pass rushing moves. He accelerates really well off the line of scrimmage. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can stand up, turn the corner, man. This guy is also really good against the run. I think he's improved in this area during his career at Florida State pretty steadily. Negative-wise, I don't think he's got a lot of power. That's just my opinion. I was surprised to see him return in 2023 because he was a first-round talent in last year's draft, in my opinion. He arguably might have been he would have been right at the top of that list there at the position. But this guy's, in my opinion, just the poster child of a 4-3 defensive end. He's a really developed player. He has a very well-developed pass rush moveset. He can set the edge. I think he has potential to be a 3-down player at the next level. I don't know if, just like Latu, I don't think he has the highest ceiling of some of these guys in this draft when talking about like the top 15. But again, a guy that has, without a doubt, one of the highest floors and just a plug-and-play impact guy off the edge.
Yeah, he was unranked as a recruit. He actually started his career at Albany and spent 3 seasons there before he transferred to Florida State. And like Dibe said, I mean, we talked about him on our edge ranking shows last year, I think,
Yep.
because I think at that point we thought he was coming out because we did edge a little earlier last year, and then he didn't declare for the draft. So, he's been on NFL radars for 2 years now. Now the flip side to that cool story about he started his career at Albany for 3 years is that he's been in college for 5 years. So he's going to be 24 as a rookie. He is an older prospect. And then the other negative I would mention on him is you could take it either way. He's prone to guessing in the running game. That can lead to tackles for loss when he guesses right. And he had 12.5 tackles for loss this year. It can also lead to some big gains when he loses gap integrity, when he guesses wrong. So he wants to be an impact player against the run, and sometimes he is, and sometimes it's a detriment there. But I like Verse a lot. He's my number 2 as well. Marky's your number 3. Anything you want to add in before we move on to your number 2?
I would argue, and we'll have to see when our overall big boards drop, I think I'm the highest on Verse out of any of us. So how about that? No, I'm just joking, but we'll see. I have him as a top 10 guy. So he is 10th for me. I don't know if either of you two will have Verse crack the top 10.
So.
Did you have Latu in your top 10?
I'll pull it up. Give me a sec.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of top 10s out there without any edge rushers. So for me to have 3, I know that's a lot different than a lot of other boards out there. I love this edge class. I really do. I think Jared Verse, I think you guys nailed it. He's not maybe the home run swing if you're taking an edge rusher in the top 15, but he might be the safest of the 3. He's probably the guy who you can definitely rely on being a solid starter at the highest level.
I have Latu number 10, Jared Verse number 15.
Yeah, no, I mean that's not a big difference. I have Verse at 10, so it's not a real huge difference. But I thought that I wanted to throw that out there so it didn't sound like I was anti Jared Verse.
Yeah. Well, Mark, since you do hate Jared Verse and have him third, why don't you tell me who you've got number 2 that's so much better than him? Talk to me about Dallas Turner.
I have at number 9 overall, just a hair ahead of Jared Verse. I have Dallas Turner, who is 6'4", 242, 11 sacks, 33 hurries, and 1 batted ball in 2023. In 2021, he had 9 sacks as a freshman. 2022, he had a bit of a down year. 5 sacks, 21 hurries. I think he was fighting through a bit of an injury that year, but he definitely wasn't quite the guy in 2022 that we saw in 2021 and 2023 for whatever the reason. An 89.3 pass rush grade, 19.6% pass rush win rate. This guy's got a bag of tricks when it comes to getting around offensive tackles, in my opinion. Feels like he has a lot of different ways, whether it be, around the edge or a spin move. But honestly, there's not that much that separates any of these 3 for me. I have Latu at number 7 overall. I have Turner at number 9 overall. And then I have Verse at number 10. What separates Verse and Turner, and I intentionally didn't speak up on this when Shane brought it up. For me, the difference is Dallas Turner's a former 5-star recruit out of Fort Lauderdale. He went to, a powerhouse in St. Thomas Aquinas. He was the top-ranked edge rusher in his class, the number 9 prospect overall in that class. And as opposed to Jared Verse, who couldn't be more different. He went unranked. He went to Albany. He's a late bloomer, whereas Dallas Turner showed up freshman year, 18 years old at Alabama and had 9 sacks at the highest level of the SEC. So I've kind of ended up, I think they're dead even, if not Verse, maybe a little bit more consistent on tape. But there's some things that really excite me about Turner and his athletic profile, his traits that he shows on film. And then obviously the pedigree is there for him. So not much separates. If Verse went above Turner, I wouldn't criticize the pick at all. But the pedigree is what ended up putting me Turner second.
All right. Dibes, anything that you want to add in there on Dallas Turner?
No. I think you could make an argument he's the best pass rusher out of the 3. I think he's more of a developmental player than the other 2. I think he's going to take time. I don't think he's got a lot of power. I think he relied on a lot of his ridiculous athleticism in college. And it was a lot of bull rush or nothing. And I think that's going to struggle. I think he's going to struggle against good length in the NFL. I just think there's going to be a learning curve for him. Whereas I think Latu and Verse are going to hit the ground running. But Dallas Turner, his athletic profile is off the charts, and he's got crazy upside.
All right. So through our first three, we've got all the same guys. Laiatu Latu number one for all of us, and then some combination of Jared versus Dallas Turner at 2 and 3. At our number 4 is where we start to diverge. So I'll lead us off here with my number 4. He is number 6 for Mark. He's number 7 for Deibs. It is Chop Robinson, edge rusher out of Penn State. Chop Robinson was a 4-star recruit. He transferred from Maryland to Penn State after his freshman year. Fun fact about Chop Robinson. If you think that's a funny first name, it's not his name. It's a nickname. He was nicknamed Pork Chop because he weighed over 11 pounds at birth. He leaned into that in college by signing an NIL deal to promote pork chops for the Pennsylvania Pork Producers Council. Entrepreneur, love it. Cash those checks. He also does a chop celebration after his sack, so fully embodied it. So we're just going to call him Chop Robinson. He is 6'3", 250 pounds. He notched 10 sacks in 2022. He had 7.5 sacks in 2023. I think he's a controversial guy. There's a wide range of how people view him. I see some people viewing him as like a top 12 guy. I see others that are like, he's a mid to late second round guy. I think there's a wide range here, and it comes from, I think this is going to be the athletic profile guy that is going to need to develop. He has an elite get off. He wins with explosiveness off his first step. He's got great ankle flexion, so he can dip under offensive tackles when he tries to run around the arc. I would say he has the best combination of get off and bend in this class. He's got a handful of finesse moves that he can use effectively. He can beat weaker tackles with speed to power if they like overset to try to get out to the edge. It's not really a strong suit though. He's able to drop into coverage off the edge. He's got a high motor, but he's undersized a bit. And that plays out in his struggles to bull rush and to play the run. I think he's got poor technique in some aspects, particularly his hand placement, and that increases his issues against the run. He's got poor balance. Like he's got that good dip, but he's easy to knock off of his rush plan, and he struggles to recover his footing. So he's a guy that he's never produced sacks at a high level. 10 sacks, 7.5 sacks.
That's actually that's the tackles for loss, Shane.
Oh shoot, I'm on the wrong tab. You're totally right. It's 5.5 sacks, 2022. I knew that didn't sound right. 5.5 sacks, 2022, 4 sacks, 2023. So in his 3-year career at Penn State, he's only got 11.5 sacks. He's Nolan Smith, except he's not a good run defender from last year. Like I feel like he's a better pass rusher. He's going to be a good athlete. There's a lot of projection developmentally. So he's probably going to go blow up the combine. And people are going to continue to be really excited about him. But he's one of those guys that it ultimately is going to come down to how well do you think you can develop him? How do you project him to the next level? Because if you're drafting him looking for a high impact player in year one, I don't think that's what he's going to be. But I do like him. I tend to like athletic edges that haven't put it all together. I was really high on Nolan Smith last year. It's similar reasons that I'm high on Chop Robinson. If he hits, he could have a tremendously high ceiling, but he could also totally bust.
Yeah, the weird thing about Chop is the analytics love Chop. I mean, in terms of his pressure rates, his pass rush grade, his PFF pass rush grade is higher than anybody else we'll talk about on this list besides Laiatu Latu. His run D grade is better on PFF than anyone we'll talk about except for Laiatu Latu.
Which is wild because I think he's a terrible run defender.
I know, and that's so much of what I'm about to say. And one more stat to just throw it out, 20.9% pass rush win rate, which is higher than anyone we'll talk about besides Verse and Latu. His run stop rate is also above, Braswell, Trice, Verse, Turner. Like it doesn't match up with what I'm seeing on film. That's what I struggle with Chop. I watch him and I'm not wowed. I really just am not. There's a lot there that leaves a lot to be desired for me in terms of, I don't know if he's got a deep pass rushing bag. I don't know if he's got the strength to bull rush. I don't know how good of a run defender he is, But you know who does know those things, I guess? These analytics, because they love them. It's a disconnect unlike really anything I can really remember at edge. I feel like at edge, you have the sack numbers to rely on, and then you have some of these analytics to look at, and then you have tape. I've never seen it so where, you know, college production and tape is on one side and analytics is totally on the other side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Dibes, you've got him the lowest of all of us at 7th. Anything that you want to add on there?
No, I think you can make an argument that Adisa Isaac had a better season than Chop Robinson last year. I'm not sure if we're talking about him today, but he's right on the back end of the top 10. Chop Robinson in big games against good competition was nearly non-existent. And that there's a lot of tape out there of him really struggling with length. You nailed it, Shane. This is all about projection. It's there. And there's a good chance he blows up at the combine or something. But he's definitely a developmental guy. And I don't know, he's not a Dallas Turner. So for me, I see more of him as a day 2 guy. And I saw the Ringer today have him listed number 13 on their big board. So you guys are all over it.
All right. So that is my number 4. Mark and Dibe share the same number 4. Mark, I'll throw it to you first here. Talk to me about edge rusher Braylon Trice out of Washington.
Yeah, this is going to end up being one of my guys if Dibes lets him be one. We'll see where Dibes ends up having him on the overall ranks eventually. But I love this guy, and I can't believe the way he's falling, kind of. I mean, PFF, as of like 2 weeks ago on the mock draft simulator, had him in the 20s. Now I think he's at like 72 on there or something, and he's like not even in the second round for them now. It's just crazy to me. To me, he's absolutely a fringe first round pick. 6'4", I have him at 274 here. 17 sacks in the last 2 years. His hurries, I mean, he had obviously there's pressures and then there's hurries. He had more hurries than anyone we're talking about. Latu had 36 and 45 hurries over the last 2 years. Trice had 53 hurries and 46 hurries over the last 2 years. 90.8 pass rush grade, so that's up there with the rest of those top guys. 72.1 run D grade, so that seems like it's above average compared to his contemporaries. And then, the pass rush win rate, 17.6%, run stop rate, 6.3%. Those are kind of, pretty good. The thing that you just said about Chop Robinson, Dibes, that's how I'm gonna use the flip side of that with Braylon Trice. Braylon Trice showed up in big games, and he showed up against good competition, and he showed up against good offensive tackles. 7 QB pressures against Texas in the playoff with 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, and a forced fumble, and a recovered fumble in that game. Beat up on Jordan Morgan, gave him his worst game last year, again when he played against Arizona. He finished with 16 pressures against Stanford. He's the first player to log 15 plus pressures in a single game since himself in week 12 of 2022 against Stanford. This guy just owns Stanford 2 years in a row. He set like a record there for what was going on there with pressures. I mean, I fall more in love with Braylon Trice every single time I watch him. I know he's a late bloomer, so it kind of goes against with some of the things that I definitely value, but 2 years of solid production, one of which being on a team that went to the college football playoff. And he was one of, if not like besides Michael Penix, maybe the biggest reason that they were able to beat Texas is how uncomfortable he made Quinn Ewers. I think Braylon Trice is maybe the most under talked about guy going into this draft. He is not getting enough talk at all.
All right. Dibes, he's also your number 4.
Yeah.
Are you as high on him as Mark is? Are you going to steal him from Mark, make him one of your guys?
I don't know if I should tell Mark where I have him on my big board. I'm nervous.
You can always change it later.
That's true.
That's true.
I've circled him to the Eagles for quite some time now in the first round. He's a terrific player, 6'4". He's, I think, a 3-down player at the next level. Can be in a 3-4, can be in a 4-3. Relentless motor. I just love this guy. He's easily one of my guys. So, Mark, he's number 22 on my big board. Where's he at for yours?
You have him a little higher than me. I think I have 25. Yeah.
25?
Yeah. But that's, I mean, considering like 72 on PFF, like we're both absurdly high
That's
on those
insane.
compared to consensus. It's absurd.
Yeah. All right. So that takes us through. By the way, Braylon Trice is number 5 on my edge rusher list there. So let's go to Mark and Dibes. Let's talk about your number 5 guys. Let's start with Chris Broswell, and Dibes, I'll kick it to you first here.
Oh man, he's the older and a little bit heavier version of Dallas Turner. He's got 56 pressures, 13 sacks, and 24 run stops in 2023. This guy is just an athletic freak, man. He's really come a long way to kind of evolve himself into this 3-down edge piece that really checks off a lot of boxes. We already talked about Dallas Turner, and he's kind of on that. He's definitely higher on that like athletic freak scale. But Broswell has length. He has burst. Him off the line, coming off the line, is a serious problem. And that quick first step to get to quarterbacks, combined with his strength and power, man, he's got it all. He's definitely one of the more underrated players on that Bama defense. And when you watch Alabama, I mean, he was all over the place, maybe even more so than Dallas Turner. He was making big time plays, stopping the run. He has a nice bull rush. He needs to develop there for sure when it comes to a pass rush moveset. But negatives, I think he's more of a pressure producer than a sack artist. Broswell needs to be more consistent getting to the quarterback. There are times when his intensity and effort just isn't there. And then I think he's kind of in line with Chop in terms of being a developmental pass rush specialist at the next level. That's how I see Broswell. I don't think I see him as a 3-down edge rusher at this time. He's raw. Maybe he projects best to a weak side linebacker at the next level. But he's got crazy upside. I think he's a day one complimentary starter to a team that already has a really good pass rusher. And I think this is a guy to watch out for at the NFL scouting combine. I think he's going to blow it up. He's a great athlete.
All right, Mark, anything that you want to add on about Broswell? He's your number 5 as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with Dibes. I don't think he's going to be a 3-down pass or a 3-down edge rusher. I think he's probably a 3-4 pass rusher who you use in passing downs, which that kind of drives him down from the first round into the second round. And that's why I have him here at 5, probably among the 30s. I'd have to take a look at my big board. But yeah, he is the 13 sacks and the hurries and the pressure production that he put on tape in 2023 is tantalizing. And that's the type of thing that it's hard to move that too far down your big board when you see how good he was at getting to the quarterback at the highest level against the best offensive tackles in the SEC, against the best quarterbacks. But I'd be lying if I said I think he really has a chance in the run game. I don't think he looks like he can really kind of compete.
Yeah, his lack of length and upper body strength shows up, especially against like bigger offensive tackles. And Alabama kept him on the sideline on running downs as well. So my favorite thing about him is just his awareness as a pass rusher, though. Like, I think he does a really good job of realizing when he's getting too far upfield and then working back inside to close escape lanes for quarterbacks. So he's number 6 on my board. I like him, but the inability to play the run is concerning. That's what drops him down a little bit for me. If you could combine Broswell and the next guy we're going to talk about into one pass rusher, he'd probably be number 1 on my board for reasons that we'll get to here in a minute. But let's go ahead and dive in. We'll talk about it. He's number 6 for Dibes. He's number 7 for Mark and I. It's Darius Robinson out of Missouri. Dibes, lead us off here. Tell me about Robinson, the other Robinson.
Dude, this guy's been climbing up the draft boards. He started out as a defensive tackle during his first 4 seasons at Missouri. This year, he moved to edge, 42 pressures, 27 run stops in 12 games, 8.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss. Was just a beast, just a straight up beast. And one of those kind of guys that went under the radar that not a lot of people were talking about. You look at the Senior Bowl, he was one of the biggest winners, man. 6'5", elite length, that combined with excellent power, man. He's still growing as a pass rusher. His ceiling there is astronomical. I think coming into the Senior Bowl, he didn't have a lot of what's the word? He didn't have a lot in his bag when it comes to getting to the quarterback, but man, he showed a lot of finesse. He was winning all of his one-on-ones with swim moves and spin moves, and he looked pretty damn good to me. Coming in, he's a great run defender, obviously being a defensive tackle. So in summary, like, this guy looks like a Philadelphia Eagle. He's tough. He's hard-nosed. He can play multiple positions. He can stop the run. He's got a red-hot motor. He's big and long. And, after the Senior Bowl, like, this guy looks like to be sneaking into the back end of round one. He's got big-time potential, just like Chris Broswell. I think this guy is on a short list of guys who really could blow things up in a positive way. Just a phenomenal athlete. So Darius Robinson, gotta watch out for.
Yeah, if he could go to the combine and test well in terms of like the agilities, the 3-cone, the short shuttle, that would be big, because that's one of my bigger questions about him, is just his movement skills in terms of change of direction, agilities. I feel like he's such a good run stopper, and I have concerns as a pass rusher. And if I could just combine him with Chris Broswell, take Chris Broswell's pass rushing ability, take Darius Robinson's run stopping ability, the guy would be probably a top 10 pick. But to your point, he's really scheme diverse. Like, he can fit on any roster in the NFL, because he can be an edge and an even or an odd front. He could even be a candidate to play like a 3 technique, a defensive tackle and even fronts, if he added a little more weight. I'm lower on him than I think both of you guys probably are, but man, if you need just a rock solid edge defender, a run stopper, those sorts of things, I think he's a great value there in that second round.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't have much to add in terms of like the scouting report on him. I'm surprised that none of us are higher on him. I'm surprised we don't have at least one guy who's really high on him, because it seems like there's a lot of love for this guy across the industry, and a lot of people who even have him like top 20, top 25. I think DJ has him really high. I think he's almost kind of turning into the consensus edge 4 of this class from what I've been seeing. So I'm just surprised. I mean, I'm tied for Shane for being lowest on him here at 7. So I'm kind of speaking out of both ends of my mouth. I'm just surprised one of us wasn't higher.
Yeah, he is. And then some places are really low on him too. Like, I don't know. It's a wide range. I was looking at a consensus big board today, and looks like the highest on him on that particular board was CBS, who had him at 20. But then Bleacher Report has him all the way down at 73. ESPN has him at 89. So people are all over the place on Robinson. But again, he's another guy. He could really help himself out with a strong combine performance, especially in like the agilities and things.
I think he's going.
So, all right. Well, let's recap here 1 to 7, and then I'll throw it to these guys. Let them give you some honorable mentions. For me, number 1 to 7, I have Leatu Latu, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Chop Robinson, Braylon Trice, Chris Broswell, and Darius Robinson. Mark from 1 to 7 goes Leatu Latu, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Braylon Trice, Chris Broswell, Chop Robinson, and Darius Robinson. And then Dibes 1 to 7 is Leatu Latu, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Braylon Trice, Chris Broswell, Darius Robinson, and Chop Robinson. So there it is, our top 7 edge rushers ranked. Clear tiers here. We have a big drop off after number 7, but there's guys that miss the cut. There's guys that are fits for a perfect scheme, guys you just like on day 3. Dibes, Who fits into that mold for you?
Yeah, if the Eagles miss out on an edge rusher and they're looking into that day 3 area, a guy to watch out for, undersized, is Javon Solomon out of Troy, I believe. Definitely underrated. Had 46 pressures last year in 2023. If maybe this guy gets drafted by the Eagles and kind of learns under Brendan Graham for a year, who knows? But this guy led the nation in sacks last season. Again, another winner of the Senior Bowl. He's incredibly quick as a pass rusher. He finished among the top 10 in top speed, max acceleration, and explosive efforts and distance traveled at the Senior Bowl. Don't ask me how they tracked all that. I'm just saying it.
GPS.
No, they do have like a next level technology. I watched something about it on Twitter. They're doing testing with this like next level technology company that's testing all these crazy things, and the Senior Bowl is kind of like on the cutting edge with that stuff.
Yeah, so like he's a crazy good athlete. So I mean, I guess I have a type. I've been talking a lot about the big time athletes today. When it comes to weaknesses, it's obviously his size. He has to prove that he can do it against NFL linemen. He typically relies more so on his strength than having a pass rush move set. But again, just like Darius Robinson, I thought he impressed with his finesse and move set. So in the right system with the correct usage, I think Javon Solomon could be an interesting pass rush specialist on third downs or something along those lines. Doesn't have a crazy ceiling, doesn't have a crazy floor. Could be a boomer bust guy out of Troy, but keep an eye out for Javon Solomon.
All right. Mark, do you have anybody you want to give an honorable mention shout out to?
Yeah, and my honorable mention comes with a tag about the top 7 that we just did. You know what makes me sad about this edge rusher class, guys? You guys know my type. We all have types when it comes to certain positions. We don't have any skyscrapers. We don't have any 6'6" guys, any 6'7" guys, any Gregory Russos for me to fall in love with. But we do have a guy a little bit farther down the draft board in Austin Booker, who is 6'6", 245, 9 sacks in 2023 at Kansas, 27 hurries, 1 batted ball. I watched a lot of Kansas this year, bet on Kansas far too often. 80.6 pass rush grade and a 78.5 run D grade. So he's viable in terms of both options, a 14.8% pass rush win rate. And the really kind of notable thing here, a 10.2% run stop rate. He had a higher run stop rate than anybody else we talked about in this class. He has the highest run stop rate of any edge rusher by about 3.5%. He's got 34-inch arms, quick twitch athlete who can cut on a dime, great spin move, good arm usage, really killed it at the Senior Bowl. So Austin Booker's kind of a guy I'd like slowly falling in love with the more I watch. And guys, we didn't mention, I mean, there Adiza Isaac, Dibes mentioned, he's going to be probably like a 3rd rounder. Jonah Ellis, the guy I had on my radio show on Saturday talking about the draft, Anthony DeBona from PFN, he loves Jonah Ellis, has him the 1st round pick. So those are the other guys kind of I would throw out there.
One more name I'll throw out is Miles Cole, elite tool guy. Yet another guy that's just a big time athlete, very moldable. Day 3 for sure.
One more name. One more name I'll throw out there. I mean, I saw Daniel Jeremiah giving him love the other day was Gabriel Murphy from UCLA. He was saying that he was way underrated.
Yeah.
All right, Dibes, one more name.
Marshawn Nealand.
Mohamed Kamara, Nelson Caesar.
I think I'm fresh out.
Are we playing 2 draft prospects and a lie right now? Are you making these guys?
That's a fun game. We could do that at some point.
I did that to Mark on Chalk Talk Live last year, except it was 2 Rams defensive starters and a lie.
I think I got it, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You did.
I got it.
I'm bad at making up names, so I just end up taking names from TV shows. So anyways, we are one more named out on edge rushers. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of the BGN Draft Show. If you enjoy the show, be sure you hit that subscribe button so you get every show on the BGN radio feed. If you're listening on audio platforms, 5-star rating and review really helps. it would also really help if you go give us the thumbs up on the YouTube video on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube page. So we can get that viewership up as well. You can check us all out on Twitter. I'm at Shane Haff NFL. Dibes is at Mr. Crockpot. And Mark is at Mark Henry Jr. And we will catch you guys next week for another episode of the BGN Draft Show. Go Birds.